Hello everyone, my name is Jitendra Bafna. In today's video, we're going to see how to configure a HTTP connector in a MuleSoft Composer. We're going to see a two authentication mechanism. One, a simple basic authentication, how we can access the API with a basic authentication, and how we can access the API with a client ID enforcement authentication or authorization, right? So these are the two mechanisms we will going to see in today's demonstration. Let's get started. I will create a simple scheduler flow which will going to call HTTP URL over the basic authentication first. Then we will see how we can configure a client ID and the client secret authentication parameters. So let's start. Create a new flow. There are two options: create flow from scratch, create flow from template. I will go with a create flow from the scratch. Then we have multiple options. So in this case, I will just create a scheduler flow. So we have a multiple options to configure scheduler like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, up to 30 days. So these are the few predefined scheduler you can schedule. Then I will just click on this plus sign. I will just define a system action. I will just say HTTP connector, right? And let me create a new HTTP connection. So here I will say, so basically I have a simple HTTP service, correct? So this is the MuleSoft service which is deployed to the cloud hub. So let me browse this service, and this is prompting me to add the username and the password. I get this particular response. So this is enabled with the basic authentication. Okay. So do one thing, go back to Composer. Let's start configuring the connection. MuleSoft to do basic auth hyphen. I will just give a dev environment name. So it have multiple authorization type: bearer token, basic authentication, authorization code. So these are the few authentication types supported or authorization types supported. I will go with the basic authentication. Then you have to provide the base URL. So I have already copied a base URL here. Okay. So just paste the base URL. Then you have to provide the username. So the whatever username you configure for the serve API, it's admin, and my password is also admin. Now just say next. So once you say the next, it will like try it. It will try to test the connection. So for that you have to provide some resource path. So I have this particular resource path. I will provide that the request path. Select the request method. So we have a get post. So I will just go with get, and I don't want to configure any additional header, or just say connect. If everything is good, so it will connect. So that's fine. Just ignore this warning. So it's able to connect. So that's why it is asking to you configure the action. So what is the action? It's a simple HTTP request. So it no paginated, just a simple. Select the method. It's a get method. Then you have to select the path. So you can select the same resource path or whatever. If you have a different resource path, you can just select that. In my case, this is to do plus one. That is my resource path. If you want to add additional header or whatever additional query parameters, you can configure it from here. If you have an example request, you can configure from here. For now, we have a get request. I don't think we have to pass any example request, but we have to. We we will get some response, right? So I will just add the body response format. This is my body. Right? Just copy this, paste it here. Just say save. So I have configured my HTTP connector. I will just say save and just say HTTP connector demo. Just apply. Just test it. If everything is good, it will give a successfully completed message. You will get a successful message. So test finish. It means everything is good, and you can see the response here, like ID, user ID, test output. You can see it here. Correct. Let me do one thing. Let fail this. I will just change the username to admin12. Just save it. Okay. just go back, wait for 20-30 seconds because it takes some time. The API configuration takes time. Whenever you are doing changes in the MuleSoft API policy, it takes 20-30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds for changes to get reflect. Maybe try again. Test this time, it should fail with some authentication error because I've changed the username, and the username configure on this connector is admin, but there I changed it to admin1 2. It is still finished, so still it's let me check if I change it to admin1. Let's wait, let's try it again because as I mentioned, it takes time to get the things reflect. So we got the error, test finished with error. It's saying authentication attempt failed, right? So now we will do other thing, like I will remove this policy. I will use the client ID enforcement policy. Remove, just say up add policy and just say client ID enforcement policy, just say next, and it is expecting a client ID and the client secret in the header parameter. If you want to change it to basic authentication also, you can do it, right? So if you are changing to basic authentication, in that case you have to pass a client ID as a username and the client secret as a password, right? But let's go with a custom expression for now. Just say apply. Okay, so I just applied the client ID enforcement policy. The next thing, let me duplicate this. I have to generate what I have to do. I have to generate a client ID and the client secret. I will navigate to any point exchange, and I will click on my API. Simply I will say request access. I will use some existing application. I already have demo API, or you can create a new. For now I will use existing. I will just say request access. So this is already exists. So let me create a new. I will say Composer API. Just say create request access. You will get a client ID and the client secret. Copy this client ID on some notepad. Let's go back and copy the client secret. Right. So let's try to test the Composer flow again. It should throw the error invalid client or authentication, something like that. So it's saying authentication denied. Why? Because we have to have to pass a client ID and the client secret. So for that I will just edit the flow. I will change the connection. I will create a new connection basically, right? I will just say add new. I will just say MuleSoft to do client hyphen dev. Okay, so that is my connection. Now here we don't have an option where I can configure a client ID and the client secret. We don't have that particular authentication. So what I will do, I will use the API key. Okay, so just just carefully look at here what I am trying to do. I am configuring a API key as my authorization type. I will provide the base URL. Then I have to provide a name. So name, what name it is expecting, I will just say client secret. Okay, and you have to pass the value. So what is the client secret? The second one is the client secret value, right? And you can configure how to send. I will send as a header because our policy is expecting a client secret in the header. Just say next. My policy is also expecting one more parameter, right? So copy these to dos for first, copy this. Why I'm copying this? Because we have to provide the request path. So here it is testing your connection. Now I have to pass one more header, right? I can do that. Client secret I have already configured in the API key, and I can pass one more header here, client ID. Okay, just provide the client ID value. Simple. Now just test this connection. It is Done. Now it is just tested, right? Now I have to configure the client ID on the connector. So I will just say add header item. I will say client ID. For testing we have used. Now I have to configure on the connector. Then paste it here. Okay. And that's it. Like save it. So you get a client secret when we are configuring the connection. At that time we define the client secret and client ID we are passing from here. Test it. If everything is good, you will see the response back. Yeah, we got a successful response, and here you can see completed ID, title, user ID, right? That's correct, right? You will see one more approach. This seems bit complicated. So what I can do, I can go back to my client ID enforcement policy. I can just say edit configuration. I'll change it to basic authentication header. Save. Okay. So now here, let's wait for some minutes. Then we will test it again. Let's see whether it throw the error or not. It should throw the error. I will waiting for 10-15 seconds. Let's test. Let's see. It should fail basically. If, because sometimes changes take time. It is still successful. Yeah, it failed now, right? The changes has been applied. So you can see the error authentication denied. So I have to change the connection again, and I have to configure my client ID and client secret as a username and the password. I will change the connection. Okay, and I can just add new HTTP connection, and here I can say HTTP to do basic auth client dev. You can give some name, and now I will just change basic authentication. You have to provide the URL. Okay, you have to provide the username. Now my client ID will be username, and my password will be client secret. Just say next. Now give a request path. My request path is to do's one, right? Now I don't have to pass any header or anything. Just say connect. If everything is good, it will give a, like, no, it will ask you to configure the action. Now you can, you can remove this authorization header, and you can simply simple request, HTTP get to do's, and you don't want any parameters. Just save it and test it. So your test is finished. Here you can see the response ID one title, yeah. So that is how you can make use of your HTTP connector or HTTP requester in your MuleSoft Composer flow, right? So we have seen multiple ways, like how we can make use of the client ID enforcement as a authorization header or as well as basic authentication, and also we have configured this Mule HTTP connector using basic authentication, right? So I hope you like the video. If you like this video, please click on like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.